Welcome to Bright Spark Recaps Hamlet Act 1, Scene 1. What is going on in Denmark and why are the watchmen so scared? Let's find out. In literature, the word setting is used to identify and establish the time, place and mood of the events of the story. It helps us to establish where and when and under what circumstances the story is taking place. This put Hamlet's setting in terms of time somewhere in the late Middle Ages, between the 14th and 15th century. This play takes place in the castle of Elsinore, a seaport on the northeast coast of Denmark. This scene in particular takes place on a platform before the castle, which the sentinels patrol. Shakespeare paints a very gloomy picture in Act 1, Scene 1, in that it is bitterly cold and the watchmen are quite nervous as they spotted a ghost while being on duty the previous night. The first character we deal with is Francisco. Francisco is a soldier and on duty to keep watch over Elsinore Castle. Even though Francisco seems to be a less important character in that he speaks less than 10 lines and we never hear from him again, his words are very revealing. It is Francisco who tells us that it is better called setting the scene for the plays discussed before. It is also Francisco who reveals to the audience that everything isn't well in Denmark by saying that he is sick at heart. This means that he is nervous in anticipation of some dreadful event. Bernardo is an officer, higher in rank than Francisco. He too is extremely nervous, having to keep watch at this deadly hour. We see this when he gets a fright when hearing somebody moving close by and asks, "Who's there?" He asks Francisco whether he has had a quiet guard, giving the impression that Bernardo really doesn't feel like facing any trouble tonight. When Francisco is about to leave, Bernardo asks Francisco to tell Marcellus and Horatio, who are to join him, to hurry up, as he doesn't feel comfortable being on watch all by himself. So what are these men afraid of? There are two answers to this question. Firstly, Prince Fortinbras is planning an attack on Denmark, and secondly, Bernardo and Marcellus spotted a ghost while being on duty the previous 2 nights. Bernardo tells us about the ghost they saw and mentions that Horatio thinks them to have imagined it. It is also Bernardo who reveals Horatio's reaction to seeing the ghost, in that he looks pale. Marcellus is also a soldier, equal in rank to Francisco. Marcellus brought Horatio along on duty since Horatio doesn't believe their story in having spotted a ghost. He also reveals that Horatio is an educated man and that he says that Horatio can speak to it, should question it, and he calls Horatio the one who knows. Marcellus asks important questions about the state of affairs in Denmark, such as, why do they have to keep such strict watch at night? Why is Denmark importing weapons of war? And why are ships being built around the clock 7 days a week? Horatio, the educated, will answer these. Horatio is an educated man in that we later learn that he went to Wittenberg University with Prince Hamlet. He is inclined to believe facts and thus calls the story about Bernardo and Marcellus having spotted a ghost fiction until he sees it with his own eyes. This lends some credibility to the ghost with regards to the audience. The audience is more likely to believe that the ghost is real because an educated man such as Horatio saw it with his own eyes. Horatio is thoroughly frightened by the sight of the ghost. It harrows me with fear and wonder, he says. Since Horatio is an educated man, one can assume that he is fluent in medieval Latin. This was the language of science, literature, law, administration, and the Roman Catholic Church. Since the ghost has returned from either hell or heaven, it is assumed that it will converse by means of medieval Latin. This is why Horatio was asked to speak to it and question its intentions. Even though Horatio prefers facts over fiction, he does lend his ears to gossip or speculation upon answering Marcellus's questions upon the state of Denmark. Horatio explains that the late King Hamlet of Denmark and King Fortinbras of Norway agreed to a war during which the loser will forfeit all his land. King Fortinbras has lost his life and consequently lost all his land to the King of Denmark. King Fortinbras' son is now attempting to avenge his father's death and regain all lost land by means of a war against Denmark. The ghost looks like the recently deceased old Hamlet, King of Denmark, in that it is dressed in a similar way and wears the same frown on his face. Horatio tries to speak to it, but it disappears, which may be an indication, considering Act 1, Scene 2, of the ghost wanting to speak to someone else. Horatio says the ghost might be warning of an attack. The ghost reappears but disappears again without speaking when the cock crows to greet the dawn. By being watchmen, Francisco, Marcellus and Bernardo are honouring Denmark and ensuring its safety. Young Prince Fortinbras wants to avenge the death of his father so as to regain his honour as prince or even king of Norway. In fact, every father and son relationship in this play leads to revenge. Horatio honours his friendship with Prince Hamlet and vouches to let Hamlet know about this ghost, which so closely resembles Hamlet's father. Bernardo and Francisco's nervous cries of "who's there" and "unfold yourself" builds dread and develops a theme of uncertain reality. They are thus not sure whether there is someone else out in the dark other than themselves, or moreover, whether the other person is friend or foe. The ghost, which was only a figment of Bernardo and Marcellus's imagination, according to Horatio that is now a reality, and that Horatio, the educated, has seen and confirmed it with his own eyes. The question is thus no longer as to whether the ghost is real, but rather why is it appearing? Should it be the deceased king after all? What does this mean for Denmark? While religion, honour and revenge all carry positive connotations in this play, the words poison, corruption and death convey the negative and more gloomier side of the play. From the start of the play, Shakespeare sets an ominous atmosphere. It is cold, dark, and the audience is made aware of something being aloof in Denmark, and that it gave reason for guards to be nervous while being on duty. The appearance of the ghost confirms something isn't right in Denmark, as Horatio remarks. This bodes some strange eruption to our state. Fortinbras's revenge predicts death to the Danish in war. That's it for Hamlet Act 1, Scene 1. If you found this helpful, subscribe to Bright Spark Recap.